everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of episode 2 of the Unlock Project podcast. I'm Mere, your host, and this podcast is brought to you by Greenovate Europe as part of this exciting EU-funded initiative. In part 1, we explored the complex challenges of the feather value chain, discussing logistics, infrastructure, feather availability, feather quality, EU regulations, and market challenges. Today, in part 2, we continue our insightful conversation with our guest, Dr. Michelle Riblet, Director at Farrelly&Mitchell, which is a global food and agribusiness consultancy. In this episode, we shift our focus towards the strategies required to mitigate these challenges and how Farrelly&Mitchell's value chain analysis contributes to the overall goal of the Unlock project. So join us for the second part of this interview. So welcome back, Michelle. As we just discussed, there are many hurdles in the feather value chain. Which hurdle do you consider most critical to overcome?
We feel that, I suppose, the availability of the feathers is the most critical, because I suppose if you think about it logically, if we don't have in the inputs, we can't have the outputs, and I think that for us is the most critical one. So the availability of feathers, as I mentioned earlier, there is that demand at European level definitely for the feathers. So we will have to ensure that there is the interest from the processors to invest in the infrastructure that would be needed for the new value chain. And I suppose that the project has to show that there is a return on investment for the processors, in terms of the pricing for the higher quality feather, and that there will be also that long-term demand for the feather, as there is now for the fertilizers and feed. So we do know that the bioplastics is a new area, and it's not going to it's going to be here long term, because we have to move away from the conventional plastics. So there will be that demand long term for it. And I suppose we need to ensure that the project overcomes the hurdle of convincing the processors to invest in the infrastructure that's needed for the pre-treatment, and then to assure them that they will get the value for the feathers at the end. So that will then overcome that availability, and ensure that at the regional levels, wherever the biorefineries are situated, that there is that feedstock that's available to feed into the process. And as I say, without the feedstock, we don't have the end products or the additives to go into the end product. So that for us is the most crucial. Many of, not to say the other hurdles are also significant, but I think this is for us the key one.
No, of course, this makes a lot of sense. And could you share insights about potential mitigating factors or strategies to address these hurdles that we just discussed?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, it's really important to have ideas or strategies for each of the hurdles. I think the best way maybe to do this might be to define the potential challenges and solutions in the three broad categories that we had talked about, which is firstly feather collection, maybe feather treatment then, and then the market challenges. So if I start with feather collection, where, as I mentioned, the challenges include those related to transport, feather quality, and then the regulatory requirements. Potential solutions here include investment in alternative feather management processes. As mentioned previously, this is the pre-treatment, to ensure then we have that quality of the feather is maintained, and also then to meet the regulatory requirements of the current animal byproduct legislation, which sets out those criteria for feather sterilization. So these are really important. In addition, integrated business models to reduce then the transport requirements are important. And also integrated business models can also help with the feather management and to manage those practices more efficiently. So these, I suppose, particularly for feather collection, would be some of the areas that is important to address. If we move on and look at feather treatment, challenges here under this area include investment costs and diversification risks and competition for feather availability. Some of these solutions could be alternative funding options to support the businesses, such as the grants that are available across the EU. And this would be an important area for businesses to understand what funds are available. And that will definitely support the investment. Or the establishment of third-party feather management entities. And we've seen this in a similar animal byproduct category for meat casings, where we have a particular third-party management entity for the management of the biomass. So this is a potential area to or a potential solution or strategy. A case can also be made for focused business strategies by honing in on high value creation in low volume markets. So there, I suppose, before expanding offerings to the wider market, and just have that very niche market for this product. So that's one option. In addition, long-term contracts would be a strategy to be arranged in order to ensure that we have the feather availability covered. So I suppose that gives businesses assurances that they have those long-term contracts for the sale of the biomass. And if we think about the market challenges, the potential hurdles to overcome here is the competition from other bioplastics and the conventional plastics, and also then consumer acceptance. These challenges can be overcome throughout work within the project, in particular, as I mentioned, where the value proposition for the biodegradation timelines will really help to differentiate these products from the other options. So this is really a key focus now of the project, to have that distinction. Mm-hmm. And then placing the emphasis on the benefits of utilizing these feathers then as ingredients with this value add proposition as well. So these are what we consider the key challenges then, and key mitigating strategies for Unlock.
And so as a next question, I'm curious to know how the analysis by Farrelly&Mitchell on the feather value chain contributes to the collaborative Unlock project and its broader aim. Could you explore this question a bit?
Sure. Yeah, I suppose, as I said at the beginning, our work, I suppose our initial work started under work package 2, and that was really an important work package in order to set the project up and how it was going to what direction I suppose the project was going to take. So in particular, that initial analysis in terms of the availability of the biomass, the regionality across the 5 key target countries that we focused on, the management practices for the feathers within the industry was really important, and our insight really connecting with the industry at the ground level to really understand what the practices were with the current feathers was really, really important. So I suppose we captured a significant amount of insight into the current management practices, and then that has fed into how these 3 demo cases should or could be established. So those points and that initial work under work package 2 really was really important for designing, I suppose, and feeding into the subsequent work of the project. And I suppose now that we have established that, the other key aspect, the understanding of the policies and legislation, is one that we continue to work on. And of course, any changes with the legislation can impact how the 3 demo cases will be set up, what the settings for those would be in order to meet regulatory requirements in terms of sterilization. And, for example, if we are setting up a sterilization point, that will involve both a time and a temperature. And those settings then have an impact on the environmental aspects of the value chains. So that feeds into life cycle analysis. So we want to ensure that we both balance the regulatory requirements and balance the efficiency in terms of energy use, environmental impacts, etc. So this aspect is really key for us now to feed into how eventually these demo cases will be established, and then the settings for the new scale up of these technologies on the ground. So that this is really how we contribute, and I suppose we continue to support the project now at the process simulation stage, and always connecting with the stakeholders as well to get their understanding and their expectations, I suppose, for pricing, etc., for what the end products can deliver in terms of functionality, but also in terms of the price that they would be willing to pay. So these are I suppose, broadly how we have contributed from our company into the project.
So as a last question, we like to look ahead to the next episode. And in our next podcast episode, we will chat with CEDATEC to discuss Work Package 4 on further processing. So what topics can we expect to explore in the upcoming episode?
Okay, so Work Package 4 is a really interesting component of the project. That deals in particular with scaling up of the feather treatment technologies. And with that will come some significant challenges and some interesting observations and results. So this is where we'll be testing the results in terms of the possibility of scaling them at a large scale, and also getting the value creation in terms of the functionality, particularly in terms of the biodegradation of the materials. So as you can imagine, this is a particularly tricky part of the project, and with novel technologies, we have novel challenges, especially with the scale up from what is now at the lab scale into then the commercial environment. So I suppose what will be interesting in this is really to see what those final settings will be at the commercial stage to balance both the regulation and the environmental impact. And that's probably will be, I suppose, for us, definitely the most interesting to see what those final settings will be when you move into the commercial stage. So we look forward to your podcast on Work Package 4.
Perfect. That's a great point. We keep that in mind for the next episode. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here today. And that also concludes today's episode. So thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today. And we look forward to learn more about the Unlock project in the next episodes.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.